we're making an early Ford drop axle jig. So let me show you just some of the few components I've collected in order to make this jig. First off, you'll need some kind of base. Most people use an I-beam, but I got this piece of steel for really cheap. The next thing you're gonna need is an early Ford spindle. I also have a 12-ton bottle jack. And this was a stubby one because I wasn't sure what my height constraints would be. Some people have used a 20-pound jack, but I guess we'll see if this one works. I'm hoping this one will be strong enough, but I already had it, so I'm gonna use it. And what I plan on doing is I need to create an upright here and an upright here that I can weld this spindle to like this. And what I'm looking to do is I want to mount this axle in upside down so that I can place the jack like this and then have the spindle welded to the upright here, so that way I can heat this area of the axle in order to stretch it out to get a 2-inch drop. And a 2-inch drop is what I'm going for because that's what these axles will allow, because the spacing in between here, as you stretch it, these 2 points get closer and closer together. And if you go too far, they'll interfere with each other, the geometry of the steering and everything. So that's my goal. I don't know how well this is going to work. One thing I'm worried about is that this beam here isn't strong enough, and that as I'm using the jack, it will crush this beam before it actually ends up bending the steel here. So, but we'll see. You know, this is a learning experience. I might need to go back in and reinforce it. My other idea is if it isn't strong enough, I can weld in a piece of steel tubing and put a sleeve that sits inside of the steel tubing. But we'll see when we get there if I have to do that. So anyway, I'm going to start off by taking some measurements and seeing what it is I will need to do, and I'll have you guys right back as soon as I do that. That floor is pretty level. I'll need about 12 inches off of this. So I'm just going to grab a square and start marking it up. All right, that looks pretty good. So now that I have this here, I'm gonna mark out where my spindle is going to go. So here, I have a worn out hole saw bit that I'm just gonna use to trace. It's not sharp enough to cut this. I'm just gonna measure using this. that's a nice and tight fit. Now that I've got this all welded up, I'm gonna go ahead and mount the spindle in. So yeah, there has to be something wrong with my welder. If you saw my video about narrowing the 48.8 rear axle, you'll see that those welds were a lot better. Actually, I could take you over there and show you. They're kind of rusted now, but these welds were a lot better than the results I'm getting now. And I'm wondering if the MIG wire is just cheap garbage. I looked at the reviews on Amazon and they were fine, but for some reason, these welds aren't coming out all that great. I might weld in some gussets here, but I'll just have to see. I'm going to go ahead and mount the axle in, and we'll see how it looks. Okay, I'm going inside. It's a few days later. I was getting pretty frustrated with the way the welder was working. I went ahead and ordered some new wire just to see if that helps. I think the wire that's in here might possibly be contaminated, but we'll see. The other thing could be this is only a 90 amp welder, and this metal is a little on the thicker side for what that welder is capable of. So what I'm gonna try for now is I did get an oxyacetylene torch set, and I'm gonna see if I can preheat the metal before welding to see if that gives me an advantage over what I've been doing. And that will kind of tell me, okay, is it the welder? Am I going over the capacity of what this welder is capable of? Or is there actually something wrong with the welder itself? So I'm gonna go ahead and get that set up and start heating this up and just see how it goes. So actually, as I was filming that last little bit, the wire came in. So I ended up getting some nozzle gel because I have been getting a lot of spatter and a lot of buildup on the end of my torch. And I went ahead and I got a name brand wire just because the one I was using was cheap one. This one was about $10 more for a 10-pound spool. Okay, so I've ground off all the welds, and what I'm gonna attempt to do is I'm gonna heat this area with the oxyacetylene torch, and then once it's well and evenly heated, I'm gonna hit it with the wire. I'm gonna hit it with the wire brush and go in for a weld. So I'm gonna try that now. Yeah, I could definitely say that was definitely the issue. I know these welds don't look perfect, but like I've said before, I'm not a professional welder. I just do this as a hobby, and you know, I've used more powerful welders and had better success than I have been having, so that's why I knew it wasn't as much as a me issue as much as it was the equipment. Let's just get a little bit of a close-up on that. I know they don't look the best, but it's better than it was. And with some practice, I know I can get a lot better. So I did end up swapping to the new wire, and pretty big difference. At the end of the day, I still think that this welder just simply isn't powerful enough. You could see it's only a 90 amp, but I really don't want to make this video about welding or anything. I wanted to make it be about this jig, so I'm gonna move on. I think the welding I did on that's sufficient for now. So what I'm gonna do next is I need to reinforce this area between here and here, because this steel tubing I don't feel is strong because what's happening is as I've jacked the axle up, it's squeezing this together. So I need to put something in between here and here. Yes, that axle or that spindle post is going in, but I think I'm gonna cut a piece off of this C-panel here and weld it into there in order to allow me to gain some strength. So you can see it's still hot. Yeah, it really helped. I beveled this edge here and look how much better that weld looks. So yeah, definitely a penetration issue with the thickness of the steel and the combination of crappy wire. Ignore this side, it's ugly. But yeah, I got that piece welded in, and I'm sure I definitely added some strength to that area there. Now what I want to do is I want to grind all of this weld off here, and then also on the other side. And what I want to do with that is I want to put some triangulation in here in order so that while I'm bending the axle up, this doesn't want to move back this way. So I have this square here, and it's kind of deteriorating. It's rusting around the edges, and I found myself not wanting to use it because of that. So I'm just going to go ahead and grind all the paint off this. It's about 1/8 of an inch thick, so it should be thick enough to definitely create the supports I need. So I'm going to go ahead and grind all these welds off, grind this thing up and clean it up, and I'm going to use that to weld onto here in order to make the supports I need. Okay, so I've got those brackets welded in. So now I'm gonna go ahead and call this side done for now. And I'm gonna go ahead and move on to the upright for the other side. I'm going to install the axle and get some measurements to see where I need to put the upright for this other side. So this side here was 12 inches tall, and I'm gonna have to make this one a little bit taller. I'm gonna go ahead and make this side 18 inches tall. Because if I ever get a Model A axle, I wanna be able to stretch that one also, and you can stretch those up to 4 inches. So now that I've cut this off of this side, and I've got this upright here, what I want to be able to do is I want to be able to slide this forward so I'm right about right here or close to about right here. Because I'm thinking what I want to do is I want to be able to put something on this suspension connection point that will allow it to ride up and down against the face of this beam to keep the axle straight. And also I can put my measurements in at this point and be able to bring it up to touch a certain point so I know that I have reached that 2-inch increase in height. And what I'm thinking is I might use some kind of bar that will go across here, made out of maybe steel. So let me bring you in and show you what I've come up with. So it's funny, I ended up finding this just in some stash of things I've had, and it just happens to fit almost perfectly in there. I think what I'm gonna start with is I'm gonna get my measurement, or maybe get a level and go down from this point, and I wanna get this here flush with this here, so that way it'll ride against it as it's being lifted up. So what I gotta do now is I need to open up this face. So I think the idea that I've come up with is I have this piece of C-channel and these two bolts that I'll make it so that I can bolt this piece of C-channel 2 inches above this point. And what that'll allow me to do is this face will keep the side to side movement, and say I do kind of start tilting to the left or to the right like this a little bit. If I bolt that there, when this axle hits that, I feel like perhaps, you know, that play will be taken up and then it'll hit flat on this like that when I get to the final height that I need. So what I'm gonna do first is, before I get into that, I'm gonna go ahead and weld this to the base. And once that's all welded, I feel like I'll be able to get my measurements for this more accurate. So after all this time, I was finally able to get some good welds out of this welder. And I just think it was the cheap wire and also the fact that this steel is a little thicker than this welder can do. But I did bevel these edges, and that's what allowed to get that good penetration and that decent weld. I'm not that great at welding, but I'm not here to teach welding. I'm just here to show what I'm doing and enjoy my own experience and share it with others. So that's just improving, or I just want to improve and get better, and that's what I'm here for. now I'll just drill a hole here and a hole here. That will accept this bolt. I'll transfer the holes to here and I'll bolt it on. So that's that for this project. We'll see when we go into the testing phases how this works. Next week's video will be me actually turning this into a drop axle. And I'm not gonna start with this axle because this is my good axle. I'm going to start with the one that originally came on the 41 Ford pickup chassis because it's not in as good a shape as this one, and it's a lot more rusted, and it actually has some chunks taken out of it. I was happy I was able to pick up this extra axle from my friend Greg, and I'll mention him in the comments, his YouTube channel. He does engine work and restorations. He actually ported and polished the cylinder head on my 86 Civic K24 engine. So just a shout out to Greg for giving me these parts. So yeah, that'll be it for this video, and we'll see next week if this was a successful jig that I made, or we'll find out if there were any reinforcements that we had to make to it, which I'm sure there will be, but we'll find out. So see you guys next time. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. We reached, as I'm producing this video, or as I'm filming this video, we reached 50 subscribers. So a small number, but still a lot more than I had even when I just started this build series. So thanks again, guys, for watching, and see you in the next one.